Welcome. This is the first Council of Governors meeting of January 2024. I'll start with apologies for absence. I've got Councillor Tucker, Tim Durkin, Dean Royals, Philip Earnshaw, and Doff Pollard is trying to join us, but she's on a train and hopefully going to get to a destination where she'll be able to click in. So we might have to remove her apologies later on if she actually makes it. Are there any other apologies I've not been made aware of? No? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to declarations of interest. Has anybody got anything that's on the agenda that is going to cause a conflict of interest for them? If so, you'll need to remove yourself for that item. No. And if there's any changes to your declarations of interest, please just let Jenny Jones know in the board support unit. We'll move on to the minutes of the Council of Governors public meeting on the 19th of October. Are there any corrections to those minutes, please? Can't see any hands up. Okay, thank you. Are there any matters arising from the minutes or from the action log or work plan that colleagues would like to raise? Oh, Sue, did you put your hand up, Sue?
Yeah, very tiny one. Obviously, I mean, it can't be any other way yet, but I'm still down to attend a meeting in April and June and next year, and I apologise now, I won't be there.
Thank you. We will amend that following the meeting. Thanks for that, Sue. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I'll take those and approve the minutes. Everyone happy to approve the minutes? Yes, thank you very much. We then move on to the minutes of the annual members meeting. This is obviously just to note. Are there any issues in that or any corrections that anyone wants to make and point out that we can take away? No? Okay, thank you very much. Those minutes are noted. Just before we move on to the staff story, and we've got Matthew and Paula with us today, I just wanted to just introduce a couple of people. Emma Dallymore is with us today. Hi, Emma. Do you want to maybe introduce yourself? Emma's joining us as our voluntary partner representative on the Council of Governors. Emma.
Hi everybody, Emma Dallymore, Chief Executive at Hull and East Yorkshire Mind, representing voluntary sector.
Great, okay, thanks very much, Emma. Some of the other people with us today, they'll be able to introduce themselves later on, but I think, yeah, looking around, I think you're the only new governor face with us. I'm really glad you're joining us. So, okay, we'll move down to the staff story, and this is a service story by Community Primary Care and Forensic Services. And I'm going to hand over to Matthew and Paula, who are going to speak for about 10 minutes, and then there'll be 10 minutes time for any questions or points people want to make. Sorry, Lynn, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to introduce the story, Caroline, if I may.
I thought Matthew and, okay, if you want to, Lynn, that's fine.
Sorry, I thought that was arrangement, and that's, sorry, anyway, I'll be very brief. So just to introduce the story, obviously this story is focused on the National Staff Survey, and both Matthew and Paula will talk with you around what they've done, particularly in their areas, to improve the uptake, the number of staff that complete the survey. The staff survey obviously is really important to us. It's a priority. It's one of many ways that we engage with our staff. It's certainly obviously not the only way, but obviously the more staff that we hear from, the more we're able to have a robust percentage of uptake, that we can be sure that when we're responding to what the survey tells us, that we really are responding to those areas that staff would see as a priority. And obviously you will all know that there's a huge correlation between staff engagement and the likelihood of us delivering high quality interventions to our patients as well, which is a really important correlation. The percentages you can see in the cover sheets, so I won't go over those, but obviously there has been a statistically significant increase in the uptake by staff generally, but particularly in Matthew's and Paula's areas. So Matthew, Paula, introduce yourselves and then over to you.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn. I'll just share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen? I'm hoping you can.
Yep.
Okay. Good afternoon. So I'll hand over to Paula first to introduce herself. Ladies first.
Hi, yeah, I'm Paula. So I look after the forensic division at Humber Trust, and that's services for predominantly those that are in contact with or at risk of being in contact with the criminal justice system. And my service areas cover some inpatient, some community, and some local prison service lines.
Thanks, Paula. And my name is Matthew Handley. I'm the General Manager for the Community and Primary Care Division. So we oversee the addiction services, 3 GP practices, community district nursing services, including therapies, and that's across Scarborough, Whitby and Morton, as well as a UTC. So it's a real pleasure today to be able to come to this forum and share some of the good work that's been happening. So I will move on to the first slides. Over to you, Paula.
Yeah, okay. So as Lynn was pointing out there just in the introduction, that NHS survey is a really important tool for us. It's one that all the providers are working with in order to cultivate feedback from staff, and with an aim really to understanding staff experience at work, and also be able to respond to that experience either by enhancing positive feedback and experience or attending to areas of improvement. So in my specific service lines, we've consistently had a low response rate to the survey, and you can see here in this graph that actually we've been performing poorly comparatively to the trust overall, really. And in fact, in the bottom 3 or 4 directorates of 16 in the organisation, and only had about 30 percentage rates across the last 3 years anyway, for those responses. And whilst we've undertaken significant work to sort of improve on the areas that have been highlighted, we have been concerned about those being able to ensure that the responses are to a representative group. So was really, really important to start doing some work around driving up that response rate, and similar issues in other divisions too, Matthew.
Thanks, Paula. So within the Community and Primary Care Division, so I started in post just over a year now, and one of the lovely gifts I got when I first started was actually the outputs of the 2022 survey. So it was a really good indicator of kind of the job that I was embarking on and the level of staff engagement that I would need to improve areas. So as you can see, the graph on the left-hand side, this shows the outcomes by domain. And as a division, we actually had a 15% reduction in responses across the board. And we was also 10% lower across the board compared to divisional colleagues, including Paula. As Lynn noted at the beginning, and as Paula just has now, we too had a very small uptake at 35%, and the results of the survey definitely aligned with kind of the vacancy and turnover position that we had at the time. So with this data, I knew starting in post, it was quickly going to become my #1 target to understand the voice of the division using this great national tool.
Thanks, Matthew. Yes, so given the need to promote that uptake, we developed a strategy to encourage and meaningfully engage staff with the survey. And I'm saying we on multiple levels, because I think that was both organisational, divisional, and drilling down really to teams. But we'd also, running alongside that, and I think it dovetailed in very nicely, was the degree of significant focus on culture. So whilst we've always, of course, been keen to ensure high standards, quality care, productivity, etc., I think it's fair to say that we've been further prompted on all those fronts by the events at Edenfields, where Panorama had identified that particular poor practice, and then at the Countess of Chester Hospital, where the headlines of the Lucy Letby case are, of course, very well known. And those events really resulted in particular attention to ensuring well-governed informed services, which of course require that staff engagement piece and staff involvement in settings where staff feel that they can raise concerns and where those are responded to. So in asserting these channels through listening events, through increasing our visibility, availability and accessibility, I think the leadership team certainly demonstrated those opportunities were on offer for listening, but then also in terms of being able to respond. So sort of quite simply there, you said and we did. In addition to that, we did some very basic things, offering actual time and space to complete the survey. I think for where you have the inpatient services, that's particularly impactful, because working on a ward, being able to take a break and come away from that area can be difficult. So we ensured that we had provision of that. And then just by further means of more encouragement, ensuring that there was coffee and cake in that setting where that we'd offered for staff was available. I think that was a nice bonus. Matthew.
Thank you, Paula. So kind of starting this process for me, because I've got an acute background in the hospital and my services are mainly spread out across a large geographical location, I wanted to meet with other providers, other community providers, as well as mental health and integrated community providers, just to understand around how they got their increased uptake. So it was a really good exercise for me, given I think we've got around 15 different bases spread across Hull, East Riding and North Yorkshire, and we're working across approximately 4,500 square miles. So it's a really big patch for me and my kind of senior leadership team to be able to get out there and reach all of the staff and encourage them to complete the survey, but also the benefits of such. So the feedback was, the benchmarking exercise was a really good kind of project for the division, and it definitely has established good working relationships between counterparts and other trusts and created an environment for shared learning, and I definitely think that's reflective in the outputs. So following the benchmarking exercise, as a division, we set the ambition for a 50% uptake, building on the 35% that was achieved last year. So the actions for increased uptake, it was very similar to Paula's. It was around visibility and celebrating the division's success. So working in great partnership, couldn't have done this alone without support from my operational and clinical teams, but most importantly as well, workforce and OD, as well as the communications team, because they really were the enablers to this process. So what I created was a general manager roadshow. So I contacted all staff using the great work that Michelle does when Michelle sends a personal note to all staff by writing a letter. I tried that too, to kind of reach out to staff and tell them the benefits of the survey. So you'll see that kind of in the bottom left-hand corner. So the roadshow, I sent out a number of dates, just establishing which areas I'd be within, and then for staff to kind of come out, have a conversation. And then we also kind of push that best practice down for the service managers and the team leaders in each locality, so that they were talking about this more within kind of safety huddles, local business meetings, etc. And another really key point to this has been the success of our divisional newsletter that was encouraged by executives very recently. So in the trust we have a global, which I do read religiously. So we've emulated that, and we have the local, which comes from our senior leadership team. So bringing all of this together, what we really wanted to do was build on the successes, visit staff areas and increase communication. And hopefully you'll see the benefits of this coming up.
Yeah, there are the benefits on the screen now. So all that work really led to significant improvements, certainly in my division. more than doubled the response rate there from 30% to over 60%. And we were only just pipped at the post for the top performing response rate.
Paula, you're echoing on my computer. Are other people hearing that, or is it just me?
Yeah,
I'm echoing on my own. I don't know what that's about. Oh, has it stopped?
It appears to, yeah.
I think it's stopped. Apologies.
Fine. That's all right.
Yeah, so the slide here. Oh, is it doing it again?
Try again.
John Morton's just come out.
Hang on.
If everyone could turn the microphones off apart from the person that's speaking, that should cure it.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, no. So the slide that's up now is really just demonstrating the significant improvement there for forensic outcomes in terms of the uptake of that survey. So there's the 3 years there highlighted, 21, 22, 23, but that very steep line that goes from 30% to 62% is the one I draw your attention there to. So more than doubled our response rate in the division. And as I was just saying there, just pipped to the post for the top spot in the organisation by Matthew, who did just marginally better, I'm going to say. There or thereabouts on par. I'm a poor loser, aren't I? But yes, so Matthew, over to you in terms of your outcomes.
Thank you. So for my divisional outcomes, what I did weekly with support from corporate functions, so workforce and OD, as well as the comms team, was kind of update colleagues and staff within the division about how we were performing against our ambitions. And from the roadshow that I did with a lot of the staff, so I got to meet 300 frontline staff members, which was fabulous. I travelled over 1,000 miles, and then when I calculated that on Google Maps, it equated to a drive from London to Edinburgh and back, just to give you some context. On my journeys, what I also did was we got Kit Kats for all of the staff members. We wanted to use boosts to give staff a boost to do the survey, but I was very pleased. I had a chat with Pete beforehand, and he mentioned about nut allergies, so we went with Kit Kats. And in this, what we did was we encouraged staff to take a break and do the survey. So just a little bit of kind of fun there. And I just got to have lots of conversations. I got to shadow staff members. I went out on 10 patient visits, and with each of the staff conversations, what I was able to do was kind of ask kind of probing questions, but then I would repeat it back to them and say, well, did you put that in your staff survey? Many of which said that they didn't. So the roadshow worked really well, and all of the efforts that were put in by the service managers and the clinical leads to encourage that kind of conversation in the safety huddles. And I said at the beginning, our ambition was 50%. I wanted to have at least 50% of the voice of the division to be able to make real change. So the blue chart on the right-hand side shows the 21-22 average, which was 35%. And then towards the left-hand side, we can see the uptakes of everything from last year, which I'm really pleased about. We had, I think, 12 out of 15 areas above 50%, and even getting kind of like 4 areas above 80%. It was a really grand achievement, I think, for the division, and it will really help us give staff a voice so that we can make some of the changes to kind of improve turnover, etc. So just to kind of summarise and conclude, the Trust have some next steps in terms of the analysis of the result, the pre-national publication, with it being under embargo. And then I think it's estimated around mid-March 24, we should get the full national publication once the embargo has been lifted. But kind of bringing it back again to the division, me and Paula are both in agreement is that we need to follow kind of the key steps as noted on the screen and kind of water the seed to improve outcomes for our staff, but also to improve uptake again going into 2024. So we're going to look at like first understanding the results. Are these reflective of wider staff groups? Once we've got the data, it's about accepting it, not being defensive, interpreting the data, but also understanding it by area. Both I and Paula are really keen to lead a bottom-up approach to the generation of action. So rather than us read the results and then say what we think the actions will be, we're leaving it to the operational managers to work with frontline staff to discuss the results, understand why by area, and then have the actions fed up of how we can support them. Once we've got the action plans, we'll embed, deliver and monitor. We'll start preparing again for the 2024 survey. This isn't a cyclical process. It's a good national tool that's used annually. And I believe that with the increase in results and the delivery of actions based on a large majority of each division, it will actually encourage more staff to complete the survey in the future. So that's what we're definitely aiming for. And also the Trust are looking at the ongoing quarterly pulse survey. So we won't be leaving it on an annual basis. Now we'll be looking at the surveys quarterly. And the most important thing I think for me and Paula is around that key work and engagement that takes place, that has happened and will continue to happen with the communications team and workforce and OD, because they are definitely our enablers.
Okay.
So that's everything.
Thanks. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Matthew. Quite astonishing increases actually in participation, but obviously you'll be looking in for 24, some of those divisions that they're at, even though they've gone up, they're below the highest performers. So I suppose that will feed into 2024 as well. And you'll also have more, as you indicated, I think we'll be getting more reports on what actually people fed back. And it'll be interesting to see whether the uptick in turnout affects what are the issues that people are raising and their sense of them. So thanks very much for that. This is just one aspect, just for governors. This is just one tool to get feedback from staff. There's lots of other things that happen as well. Ask the executive, the shorter, and I have to say the national survey is a very long survey. What is it? Is it 200 questions or something? I mean, it's literally a long survey. The Pulse ones that are being rolled out from, I think, go live from April, I think, are a bit shorter, and there's other means as well. So over to governors. Anybody got any questions they'd like to ask or comments they'd like to make to Matthew or Paula? Thank you. Brian.
Sorry, I was muted. I just wondered whether you've considered offering any incentives. Just remember when I was at university, we had the student satisfaction survey, which was very poorly completed until we decided to enter everybody who completed the survey into a raffle to win. It was laptops, about 6 laptops that people could win, and the response rate went up exponentially. I just wonder whether you've considered a similar sort of incentive scheme.
You'd like to take that?
Do you want me to pick up that? We have. I mean, it's really difficult because it's completely anonymous, and I think a lot of staff are quite concerned if thinking if it's not anonymous. So we did do a bit of an incentive scheme, which is really quite difficult what the Treasury allows and what it doesn't, because obviously we're utilising public money. So what we did this year was done random, a bit like that, random prizes, random spot checks for people, and we did that through Quality Health. So Quality Health are the ones that do the actual survey. So we fill your form, it goes to Quality Health, they put the data together and then they send us the results, and we did it through them. So they pulled out the random winners. So a little bit, as much as we could, if that's helpful. But the work that Matthew and Paul have done is phenomenal. It's really good.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for that question, Brian. Emma.
Yeah, it's more of a comment, really. Fantastic results, really brilliant. But I suppose that there's you kind of want to get to a point where people are completing the survey because of how well they're being, or how much part of the team they feel, how well they feel that they're supported, rather than it being the work being done to get the survey completed. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of swapping that around a little bit.
Anyone want to comment on that? Matthew, Paula? Matthew.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that completely agree with you, Emma. we shouldn't have to make a huge effort for the staff to uptake in survey responses, but what we really wanted to do was get such a proportionate amount of the workforce their results so that we could action more on the You Said We Did, because at the point where we've got more data to actually listen to what the staff are telling us, they will see more that we're actioning actually on what they're telling us. Because some of the feedback I had was, well, actually, I'm really happy I don't need to complete it. But completely agree with what you're saying, and I do take the comments on board.
Thanks, Emma. Appreciate that. Anthony and then Marilyn.
Thank you for that. I thought when you first came on and we saw the initial stats of 30%, I thought these two are brave coming on here, you know, with quite low results. But that's quite a turnaround, so congratulations for that. On your visits that you did on your roadshow, was there anything in particular that staff mentioned which was one of the reasons why they weren't giving any feedback previously?
Paula?
Yeah, I think Matthew's last point there was quite a loud one in my division. Certainly, you know, I don't need to say anything. It's fine. So that was there, but there was also a suspicion about confidentiality that was stated, which I think, you know, exactly why the comments Michelle was making about incentivising, and just that suspicion amongst some of our staff that they're identifiable by what they say. But I think that's one of the reasons why it was so key to have that focus around the culture piece as well, that whatever it is that you've got to say, we're here to listen to it and respond to it and open up those channels. That's why I was just keen to share that bit. But that was certainly a theme.
Thank you, Paula. Thanks, Anthony. Marilyn.
I just wanted to ask Matthew why he thought it was that the primary care one was so low. As the service user and carer governor, I'm just interested to know why that was, or why you think that was.
Matthew?
Just from some of the conversations that I've had with primary care colleagues, I think that they felt a little bit detached kind of at my level in the practices, and that they felt like if they were to complete the survey, it wouldn't be acted upon. But what I've really tried to do in primary care and working with Sue Wardlow and the practice managers is re-establish that really good working relationship between practices and Humber, because primary care is Humber and Humber is primary care. So I think that's definitely been reflected in some of the figures.
Thank you, Matthew.
Okay.
Happy with that, Marilyn?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony, your hand's still up. Is that what they call a legacy hand? Yeah.
Sorry, Caroline.
That's no problem. No problem. I can't see any more hands up. So well, just to say to Matthew and Paula again, thanks very much. And just taking on board one of the points one of the governors made, I think it's actually important sometimes that we hear some, you know, we do hear some things about what's happening in the system that needs to be improved. And we have an improvement story that comes to both the Council of Governors and the board for that matter. And I really hope that when we get more detail about what the sort of things that staff in your divisions and elsewhere across the trust have said in the 2023 survey, this uptick in turnout will give us a really interesting perspective to compare with previous years. But I think somebody else said, I think the activity you've done, I know it was for the survey, but it sounds to me from both your presentations that a lot more visibility happened as a result, a lot more engagement, that yes, it's about the survey, but actually has a wider purpose beyond that in terms of listening to staff and picking up things as well. So thank you. That was really interesting. And we will share, I think we'll share the slides with all governors. They'll get sent to everybody to have maybe a longer look at. But thank you both so much. Let's show our appreciation.
Great work.
Thank you.
Thumbs up from everybody. Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, thank you. And we will move on now to the annual accounts. and Pete Beckwith is going to be leading on this. Just to say to colleagues, we also have Gavin Barker with us today. Gavin Barker is part of our external audit team, and he's going to present the external auditor's opinion on the accounts as part of this item. So could I hand over to you, Pete, please, to steer us through this agenda item, please?
Sorry, I was on mute, Caroline. First time this year, I'm pleased to say. So happy New Year, everybody. So, I'm here today just to present the accounts. If you've read the papers for the meeting earlier on, you'll have seen the notes from the annual members meeting where I presented a financial review of the year. So this may seem a little bit repetitive, but I'll be brief. I'll be quite brief, and I'll hand over to Gavin, who's here today. So welcome, Gavin. So I'm really pleased to say to the Council of Governors that we have now submitted our audited accounts to NHS England. They were a wee bit delayed from when we'd normally submit, but that was due to factors outside of our control, and that was namely the audit of the local government pension scheme. And what is pleasing to say is the audited accounts we submitted had no material changes from the unaudited accounts we submitted back in June, which was the deadline we were expected to meet for unaudited accounts. If I were to pull out some of the headlines from the accounts, and I'll only pull out a few because I don't want to be repetitive from what I said at the annual members meeting, I guess I would say that we completed our accounts on a going concern basis, which is really good. We do an assessment of that to demonstrate we believe we have resources to continue into the foreseeable future. In year, I'm really pleased to say that again, we met our financial control total for the year, which was to deliver a break-even position before any of the technical adjustments we do to the accounts at year end. And that break-even position was the position set on us by our regulators. You'll see from the accounts, we did end the year with a really strong cash position. We had just over £31 million in the bank, which for an organisation of our size and where we were a number of years ago is a really strong cash position to have. And in maintaining that strong cash position, we also continue to pay the majority of our suppliers on time. So 93% of the value of invoices we paid met what's called the Better Payment Practice Code. And there's been a huge focus on that nationally for the last couple of years. In year, as a trust, we delivered 2 million of efficiency savings, and I'm pleased to say all of those were recurrent in nature, which always helps us when we get into the planning round. And you'll see in the accounts, this was the first full year of the specialist lead provider collab. So obviously you can see we've talked about segmental reporting in the accounts. Couple more, you'll see in the accounts that as a trust, we have no external borrowing, which is really good for an organisation of our size, and particularly when you look across the rest of the sector, and that was something we consciously did a couple of years ago. We cleared all our outstanding debts. And finally, in the accounts, you'll see that last year, we invested just over £11 million in our capital programme, and that was across a number of areas of digital and estate and physical, if I can even say it, infrastructure. So that was a quick whistle-stop tour from the headlines of the accounts, Chair. I think it would make sense to hand over to Gavin to give the external auditor's view on the accounts and the value for money assessment, and then we open up to questions if that's okay.
That sounds perfectly in order. Thank you, Pete. Gavin, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to check that everybody can hear me okay.
Yeah.
So thanks, Chair. Thanks, Pete. I am Gavin Barker, and I'm an audit director with Mazars. So we are your independent external auditors. So we're completely independent of the trust. I'd like to make a few comments about our audit and our conclusions and findings. But given the length of your agenda, I'm going to be mercifully brief, and then I'll sort of give you an opportunity to take some questions. So as Pete alluded to, your audit takes a little longer than is typically the case with our NHS audits. And that's because you have some staff members who are in the East Riding Pension Fund, which is a local government pension scheme. And before we can conclude our audit of you, we need to get assurances from the pension fund auditor of East Riding Pension Scheme. And the primary reason for the delays was waiting for that assurance. And I'll mention that a little bit more as we briefly go through things. So we presented our audit completion report, which is in your pack today. On the we prepared that report on the 16th of June. and we reported to Audit Committee on the 20th of June. We always knew we couldn't finalise the audit by the end of June, which is the preferred timeline and the sort of timeline that's set. So there were a few things outstanding at that point, including the pension fund auditor assurance. We provided an update to Audit Committee in a progress report on the 7th of November last year. And at that point, all of our work was completed, apart from we still didn't have the pension fund auditor assurance. We were a little worried that we weren't going to get the pension fund auditor assurance till January, but fortunately it came in on the 20th of December, and we were able to move quickly to finalise your audit. And in fact, we inundated you with documents on the 22nd of December. We issued our audit report, given our opinion on the financial statements on that date. We also reported to National Audit Office on the consolidated NHS accounts, because we have to make a return in relation to that. And we also reported our findings in relation to your arrangements for value for money, the economy, efficiency and effectiveness of your use of resources, which is a specific area that we're required to consider as your external auditors. In relation to the opinion we gave on the financial statements, this is in your pack of 300 pages, I noticed, and the key pages are pages 123 to 126 of that pack. That is the independent auditor's report. It runs to 4 pages. It's quite detailed and it's quite technical, but it is the plain English version, I'm afraid. Just to highlight for you, there were no exceptions reported in that independent auditor's report. So we were able to issue an unqualified conclusion on the financial statements, that those statements gave a true and fair view of the financial position of the trust at the 31st of March 23 and the trust's income and expenditure for that year, that the accounts had been properly prepared in accordance with the Department of Health and Social Care's Group Accounting Manual, and also that the accounts were properly prepared in accordance with the requirements of the National Health Service Act 2006. There were no qualifications. We're also required to comment on a number of other areas, or we have the ability to comment on other areas, but we didn't have any issues to report in relation to the Trust's going concern basis. We are required to look in particular at certain parts of the remuneration and staff report that are subject to audit. We had no issues in relation to that. And we also need to look at the other information that are produced by the Trust in its annual report and ensure that that's consistent with the financial statements. Again, we had no issues to report in that. We also had no issues to report in terms of the annual governance statement that was produced by the Trust. So a clear audit opinion. Also in that report, we report our overall findings in relation to value for money arrangements. This is the work on the economy, efficiency and effectiveness in your use of resources. We don't give an overall opinion on your arrangements like we used to. Now we are we report on an exceptions basis. So if we identified a significant weakness in the Trust's arrangements, we would report that in our audit report, and we would make a recommendation in relation to that. I'm pleased to say that we didn't identify any significant weaknesses in your arrangements and therefore made no recommendations. Another one of our reports, which isn't on the agenda today, is the auditor's annual report. That includes a more detailed commentary on your arrangements. So what we're required to consider in this work is the financial sustainability of the Trust, its governance arrangements, and the way it goes about improving economy, efficiency and effectiveness in its use of resources. We don't shy away from the challenges that face the Trust, as in fact face all public sector bodies. You know, it's not an easy job at the moment to run an organisation like yours with financial challenges and all the rest. But we didn't identify, based on our review of your arrangements, any significant weaknesses. And I think that's a positive thing, that was our conclusion and is reflected in our report. I'd like to sort of personally thank officers, Pete and his team, for the sort of professional way that they go about doing their work, discussing any potential issues with us at an early stage so we can sort of each understand any course of action that needs to be taken, and for sort of being open and honest with us in our discussions. We value that positive working relationship, and long may that continue. So I'd like to thank Pete and the wider team that we work with. And that concludes the comments that I wanted to make on our report. But obviously I'm quite happy to listen to any comments that people may have or to take any questions. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Gavin. You know, I think a lot of work goes into making sure that our finances are healthy and stable. I know Pete's team do a fantastic job. I think the audit committee also plays a role in this as well, led by Stuart as chair too. So thank you very much for that. And it's very reassuring to have that assurance about the state of our finances. Thank you. Doff. Welcome, Doff.
Hello, thank you very much. I'm sorry for being late to join the meeting. I would really like to echo the points that Gavin's made about how fantastic Pete is in being very open and constructive about the ways that he goes about doing it, and very frank. And I clearly don't have a lot of experience about how to understand these reports. So I do have a question, and it may well be that the answer to the question is contained in the report, but please bear with me because I'm trying to understand. So my question relates to the elements in your report, which is in the audit completion report, June 2023. And in section 4, with regard to significant matters discussed with the management, and I know this appertains to Whitby, which is clearly why I have an interest in it. It talks about that on the 9th of June, the valuer decided that the methodology for valuations was incorrect and informed that trust they would be reissuing something received on the 15th of June, and the valuation was £26 million lower. We will need to audit this material misstatement, and that will be continued. The Trust is currently considering the impact of the financial statement. At the current time, we've not reflected any changes arising from this adjustment. My print doesn't include the edges of the report. Summary of misstatements. We will clarify the final outcome in our follow-up letter opinion. Now, I'm assuming that your follow-up letter opinion is the letter attached to your letter of the 22nd of December. Now, I've read it and I maybe don't know how to read these things properly. I'm interested, so I couldn't find anything about references to this valuation misstatement. And I'm just really interested to understand, because I know it reflects on some of the leases, such as Whitby Hospital, and they're obviously big problems and can be big problems some of the time. So I'm just interested to understand that a bit better, please.
Thank you, Dov. Thank you. Pete, did you want to take this? And I don't know whether Gavin wants to comment as well. Pete.
Yeah, if I take it, Caroline, and I'm sure Gavin can jump in if I get kind of a bit of my technical side wrong. So I think from an assurance point of view, Doff, there was no material misstatement by the time we submitted our unaudited accounts and our audited accounts, because we'd had the revaluation and we'd adjusted for that in our accounts. So, but just to give you a very, very quick background to it. So this year in our accounts was the first year we adopted what's called International Financial Reporting Standard 16, which is a bit of a mouthful, but basically it's accounting for leases. And what that says is when you've got leases, you need to now capitalise that lease on your balance sheet. So you have, so for Whitby, for example, we have to look at the lease for Whitby, multiply it by the life of the lease and discount it back, and you come up with a evaluation of the lease. And when we started the accounts, we did get a valuation on the property, and that almost came back and was almost an equal and opposite contra entry to the value of the lease. But as we were going through the accounts process, there was some guidance came out that another trust had challenged that accounting methodology, and we brought the valuers back in based on some advice we'd been given to revalue our estate. And to cut a long story short, if you took the lease for Whitby, multiplied it by 40 years, discounted it back, you get a value. That isn't the value you would get for Whitby on the open market. And that's a very, very crude and simple explanation, but we accounted for that in our accounts. So we made an adjustment, so there was no material misstatement in our accounts by the time we had submitted, because we got the property revalued. We discussed that process with Gavin and the team, and that was rectified by the time we submitted. Does that help, Doff?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doff. Gavin, did you need to add anything else to that from Pete?
Just to confirm what Pete said, really, I mean, this was an area, IFRS 16 and accounting for this was an area that became an issue nationally, not just in relation to this trust. And there was a lack of clarity on how valuers should value these assets originally. And it's fair to say the correct treatment only sort of emerged over sort of discussions that were held through May and June. So I support everything that sort of Pete said and sort of confirm his explanation of it. What I can't quite get right in my head is why we haven't sort of explained that and sort of explained that in our follow-up letter. So I do apologise for that, because I could understand how you had the difficulty with that when that was mentioned in that part of the audit completion report, but wasn't picked up in the follow-up letter. I suspect it might have been picked up in something that's missing from these papers, which was the audit progress report that we took on the 7th of November to the audit committee, which is a sort of missing part of this picture. I'm expecting that dealt with that, but I will go and have a look and sort of check up on that. But hopefully together with Pete's explanation, provides sort of full explanation of the question that you raised.
Thank you, Gavin, and thank you, Doff, for raising the question, because I think it's really helpful to, if you don't understand something, that isn't your fault or a sin. It's really important, and I think if that's given, also Gavin's just indicated something to take away, to think about for next year as well, for this year and the reports that come out of it. So thank you, Doff, for that. Appreciate it. Okay, I can't see any other hands up. This is just to note. So does the Council of Governors note this report we've had today? Yes, thank you. And we move on to my chair's report. And after this, we'll take a 5-minute comfort break just for any new governors. We try to have a sort of 45-50 minutes and then give everybody a chance for a 5-minute comfort break. So I'll just do my chair's report and we'll do that and then come back for the chief exec's report. First of all, obviously, I hope everybody got a chance for a break over the Christmas and festive season. I start with some sad news, which I've obviously mentioned in my report as well, is sadly Sam, our previously governor, died over the festive period. In fact, it was over the New Year's weekend. I saw, and some of you saw Sam at the all members meeting, annual members meeting last year, and honestly he looked really well, and I had some email conversations with him just before Christmas, so it came as a real shock. So I know that some of you, I'm sure, have shared your condolences. Michelle has, and I have on behalf of the trust, and I've written to Sam's wife and his family too, just the other day as well, to follow up with them and how they're doing. So can we perhaps just take a moment silence in respect to Sam and his contribution to Humber and to the Council of Governors, please? Thank you. thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. Thank you. We have some new governors joining us after the end of this month. We've got 5 new governors. I've had one-to-ones with 3 of them, I think, so far, and have got arrangements with the other new governors as well. And as you see in my report, we've got an induction programme on the 1st of February. If there are any existing governors who feel they'd like to come to that induction programme and refresh, you're very welcome. And if you just want to get in touch with Katie, it's an in-person one being held, because I think that's really important, particularly with new people coming on board. But please get in touch with Katie if you're interested in that. So we have new governors, but we are also losing some governors as well. And some of us were at the governor development session just before Christmas and the carol concerts, and we were able to sort of say some thank yous there. But we have Doff and Sue with us, and John's not with us, but just to say thank you to Doff and Sue and John for all their work during their terms of office. In particular, obviously, Doff is our lead governor and also chairs the Engaging Members Group and has been very obviously active in her constituency in Whitby over the years. And Sue, as chair of the Appointments, Terms and Conditions Committee, not only have we been through the committee, we've been through a number of rounds of recruitment for non-executive directors, and also appraisals as well. And so thank you to John, but thank you very much to Sue and Doff, who are with us today, for all their work. And I'm sure on behalf of us all, we wish them the very, very best. Thank you. Doff, Sue, would you like to say anything? Doff? You're on mute, Doff.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. It's been a fantastically interesting and exciting and learning experience for me to be with the Trust. And I feel it's been a great privilege. And I really value all the things I've learned and all the people I've worked with. And so thank you very much indeed. I hope that I don't lose contact with you all, but I just wish you very well for the future.
Thank you, Doff. Now I've just got a message from Stella saying my camera's off. Is that right? Or can you see me? Can you see me?
I can't see you.
I can't see you.
Yeah, your camera's off.
No, you've just gone off mine now, so I'll come on.
Well, it doesn't say off, and I can see myself, so that's a bit weird. So if you can bear with me, we'll go to the break and I'll try and fix it while we have our 5-minute break. So sorry about that. Doff, thank you. Sue.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who's helped and supported me in being a public governor. Being a public governor is quite different to when I was a staff governor a number of years ago when I worked for Humber. And it's been an absolute pleasure to see how much the Trust has gone forward and has made great steps in the care that they're giving and the way that it's being done. And to reiterate what Will actually said after the previous presentation, was that the communication and the involvement of everyone has really, really improved. And it's been a pleasure to be a public governor. I've enjoyed it. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Sue. That's really appreciated, and you're really appreciated as well. Just to say, Marilyn, who's with us, was put in a nomination to become your lead governor. The lead governor is a person who is the contact point for the NHS and what was Monitor if they want to be in touch with our Council of Governors. That's that particular role. Marilyn put in a nomination. She clearly was acclaimed by everyone because she was the only nomination that came in. So congratulations, Marilyn. And I think just asking for the Council of Governors to note that Marilyn is our new lead governor. Everyone happy with that? Thank you. Lots of little applause going up. Thank you, Marilyn. And Marilyn is also taking on the role of chair of the Appointments, Terms and Conditions Committee as well, which she was a member of last year. And I think while I'm at it, I think Tony has also taken on the role, I only heard about this the other day, as chair of the Engaging Members Group. So thank you, Tony, for putting yourself up for that as well. Just the only other thing I just wanted to add, and I'm sorry if you can't see me, I can still see myself, which is really off-putting, but there we go. Paul French, who is our partner governor for Humberside Police, he has got a new role within Humberside Police, so they will be providing a replacement and letting us know who that person will be. So that's all for me from my report. Is there anything in my report that people would like to mention or ask for more information about? Nope. Okay. I suggest we now at 15:37 we take a 5-minute break. I can hopefully sort out my camera and be back at 15:42. Give you a chance to go to the loo, grab a coffee, and we'll see you back here shortly. Thank you. Okay, welcome back everyone to Council of Governors meeting today, and we'll move on to the Chief Exec's report and then questions to Michelle after that. Michelle.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Chair. I'm going to take it as read that people have actually read the report. I was, as always, just pick out a couple of things that just to draw your attention to, but obviously we can ask any questions on the report or any questions for the Chief Exec. I'll come on to that in a second. I've started off just pointing out about right care, right person, just because this is work that we've been doing with Humberside Police and quite actively. And the reason I'm joining out is because quite a lot of media publicity, and that will continue over the next few weeks. We're going to do a big piece of filming at HQ at the end of January. We don't know when it'll be filmed yet, but we will let governors know and the non-execs as well. And this is about getting the right care to the right person in relationship to the criminal justice system. And so we've just done a toolkit as well. So it's quite interesting work, and they're rolling it out nationally. So we were sort of in the spotlight really for the right reasons. So I've pointed that one out. It's also really great to have the Social Worker of the Year in the organisation. So congratulations to Kirsten. I'm always reminding everybody that we've got Kirsten in the organisation. It's a great pleasure. And I've just put into them, I know it was a couple of months ago, but I thought it's really useful. I'm drawing this out in everything that I'm doing at the moment, just the staff awards. So it's a few weeks since we have the staff awards, but it's just to remind us just of the categories, but also the award winners as well, if we're out and about and visiting anywhere. I think it's useful to know. Lots and lots happening around the organisation, and lots of in the actual director's report about visibility. One of the things that we do a lot of, both the non-exec directors but also the executives, is that visibility piece, getting out there, not just virtually but out there and meeting people. So you'll see in each of the reports there's a little bit on that, and we'll continue to do that. There's also a lot happening in the system. So I've gone on to a bit about that, but I just wanted to mention NHS Impact. This is the quality improvement scheme from NHS England that we're participating in and that we'll be helping facilitate, and it helps build an RQI work as well. So it's quite interesting for the governors just to pay a bit of attention to that. Staff survey, we've mentioned that already. We are due the result, the embarkation. I've got my holidays coming up. The embargoed data in the next few weeks, but we'll start to circulate that when we get a full data analysis. We've not quite got that yet. We've picked out exit interviews because I think it might have been mentioned at a previous governor session about how do we utilise the exit questionnaires when people leave the organisations, and it's something that the exec team look at it alongside the workforce dashboard as well, because it's really good information and we're strengthening how we collect that information and what we do with it. Respect campaign continues. This is about respecting everybody from a diversity point of view, but also respecting each individual's, and links into things like the sexual charter, sexual safety charter, and our diversity work. It's also core of being Humber, and we constantly raise about being Humber because there are behavioural standards, and everybody leads by example in relationship to that. I'm not going to say too much about the EPR system, because I think we need to pick that up at some point in the next few months as a governor group, because we are changing our electronic patient record, and that's going to be quite a large undertaking for the organisation. So we'll familiarise the governors with that project over the next couple of months. Always good to see the capital work that we're doing. And it's great that, and I thank Pete and his team for doing a marvellous job in relationship to our capital work, some big capital plans like Granville, etc., developing services up at Granville, up at Hornsey, but also some of the minor capital works as well that's just as important and does affect patients' lives. Lots and lots in the communication piece and lots in the Health Stars piece. There will be more from the Health Stars point of view because that's our charity, but we're bringing the management of that back into the organisation. So more on that as we get the transition process established with that. But lots happening. I'm going to leave it there and take the report as read. What we have done this time on the agenda, we've put questions to the Chief Exec. So that's not just about what's in the report, but if there are any questions that you wish to ask from an operational point of view, then please ask them of me, of the Chief Executive. I have got Lynn and Pete with me if I need some support, but hopefully I can answer the majority of the questions. I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Michelle, for that. Any questions on the report or anything else to Michelle that governors would like to raise? Put your hand up. Thank you. No, giving you a bit more time.
Good.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Thanks, Michelle.
You.
We'll move on then to the non-executive directors who are chairs of the subcommittees. Everybody's got copies of. Oh, sorry, Will, did you want to ask a question, Michelle?
I think John does.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Sorry, apologies. Thanks, Will, for pointing that out. John, do you want to turn yourself off mute, John, please? Thank you very much. Thanks, Will.
Yeah, is that better?
There's a lot of
John, there's a bit of an echo when he's still on mute.
There's a terrible echo. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Can't hear you, John. Sorry. Can't. Try again.
You hear me now?
Yeah, okay. Go for it.
Does East Riding of Yorkshire Council's lifeline come under this?
Was the question was there, does East Riding Council's lifeline come under this?
Lifeline system, what they have. They operate a lifeline, which for carers and responders. Does that come under this?
I think if it's run by East Riding Council, it would come under the local authority. I'm not sure that we directly involved in that. I see Pete's hand's gone up. Pete?
I was just going to say, I don't think Lifeline's in scope for the electronic patient record, Caroline.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, fine. Thank you. I just a thought.
No. Yeah, good question, John.
Okay, thanks, John. Thank you. Anybody else? I'm scanning now on my screen in case I miss anyone. Okay. No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Okay, we'll move on to the non-executive directors. Dean Royals, who chairs the Workforce Committee, and Phil Earnshaw, who chairs the Quality Committee. They're on leave at the moment. So if there's any questions in their area, please raise them and we'll take them away. But we do have Francis, Mike and Stuart with us. So Francis, do you want to just say anything you want to raise? People have got the reports, but you might want to pick out some things.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. All I would say, obviously, my report is quite an old one. We have had a finance committee since then, and Pete's going to be talking about what we discussed at that committee a bit later on. You're going to get to see the figures actually before board in this case. And all I would say is that in the meeting, we've got a good degree of confidence in our year-end forecast. The performance is going well. There's really good controls in place. As Michelle's already said, CapEx is on track and it looks like it'll deliver for the year end. There's a lot of work going on in terms of next year, in terms of the 24-25 planning and what we're going to be doing about that. And we had a really good discussion around the B digital strategy, which Michelle's also referenced. And I think the only area to flag, which I think everybody is aware of, is the financial position of the NHS at just about every level remains a concern, with the outturns not looking as good as they should be. But I think those are the key points to bring out, Caroline.
Thank you very much, Francis. Mike?
Thank you, Chair. Mental Health Legislation Committee from November. I chaired the meeting and it was an excellent meeting. Really positive stuff all the way through here. There's some real live data being used on the ward in terms of restrictive interventions. There's a very interesting proposition that came out of the rapid review on mental health services by Lady Strath-D in June 23, where she recommends that half of the non-executive directors should be trained as associate hospital managers. That work is in progress. It's really valuable. I already am one. and it gives the non-execs a chance to see ward to board really, because the part of the manager's thing is to consider discharging patients. So they actually see patients either virtually or face to face. So to me, that is really, really important. The report being published in June 23, they want every recommendation to be implemented by June 24, but work is well in hand on that. I'm just looking here. Oh, yes. Section 2 used appropriately more than Section 3. I'll just decodify that one. Section 2 is admission to hospital for the purposes of assessment. And the other one is detention in hospital, which lasts, well, can be indefinitely, but an initial period of 6 months. So that was 2 and 3 respectively. If we're using Section 2 more, that means that we're not making instantaneous decisions about patients and saying, oh, well, they've been here before, so they must be ill again. We bring them in for assessment where we can, so we can actually make a decision about them. And the other thing is that we're concentrating heavily on data. And it says the next joint ENT ODG in January will focus on information flows. Just to translate again, that's the executive management team and the operational delivery group. So I'll finish there and welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Stuart.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'll just report briefly on my 3 subcommittees, starting with the audit one. You heard from our external auditors earlier in the meeting on the accounts. In terms of the internal programme, that's on track and going to plan. And the last 3 reports, we received significant assurances on volunteer recruitment, job planning and safer staffing. We had an unusually kind of by exception, kind of wake up call a little bit about one of our areas, and that's to do with feedback and acting on feedback from users, which we're looking into. We had some really positive information governance reporting, which was a retrospective about the progress being made in 22-23 as a whole year. And it's always an area that I really make sure we keep an eye on, because as we know, kind of, you always want data management to go well. If anything even minor goes wrong, there can be quite catastrophic consequences. What we're seeing is really good examples of leadership across the trust's information governance, and some really strong assurance about leadership and activity, which is really, for me, very encouraging. On the risk side, we continue to see the salient risks being relating to workforce and recruitment and waiting times, despite all the good work and controls that are being undertaken. So we keep an eye on those 2 areas. Moving on to charitable funds, you will be aware, not least from what Michelle said, but those of you who attended our development session earlier, that things are changing on the charitable funds front. We're bringing the whole function in-house. We've parted ways with our partner for reasons of not acceptable levels of performance. So we're going through that transition now. In the meantime, fundraising campaigns underway in respect of a CAMHS waiting room, the Malton Hospital day room, and generally mental health, with a 12 to 18 month lead time for these campaigns. So we are very much hoping that with the transition to in-house, we'll give this piece of work a refresh. And then finally, my collaborative committee report. This, again, going in very positive signs of continuing development and evolution of this area, which is becoming more and more important, the way the NHS is organised and works. On the plus side, the number of young people in CAMHS requiring an eating disorder in out-of-area placements has been reducing. We're also seeing a continued reduction in the medium and low secure patient population, which is good. Main concern at the moment has been some of the financial pressures around packages of cares for CAMHS and for adult eating disorders. So we're keeping an eye on those, but on the whole, this contractual arrangement is working to plan, and the 3 work streams within it are all in the process of reviewing their current priorities and planning ahead for further development in 24-25. So I think, again, a positive report overall from that area. of the Trust's work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stuart, Mike and Francis. Any questions or comments to any of our NED chairs? Looking around. Oh, Doff.
I think Stuart could predict this when he when he reported on the charitable funds. I think to some extent this is one where I find the challenge of being a governor when I want to potentially pitch in a bit is the challenge. I feel like I've got quite a lot of experience about how to engage local groups in doing fundraising things, but I don't know how I contribute any of my ideas and suggestions into the pot of the discussion. And so what you said at the development session was really, really helpful. And I'm wondering if there are ways that you could potentially engage with the PACE activities to really explore how local groups can engage and support our fundraising initiatives, because I think there could be a really good link between what's happening with fundraising and how local groups who feed into the discussions about what the Trust is doing. I kind of feel like this one remove, there would be quite a lot of things that I would like to suggest and contribute just as a member of the community about how to engage, but I appreciate that isn't my role in this position at the minute.
Stuart, Pete?
You go first, Pete, then I'll go on.
Yeah.
You go.
Yeah. So I think you make a really good point, Doff, and I guess what I would say is we are bringing the charity in-house from April. We have got a relaunch plan. Part of that relaunch plan will be some resource we're going to put in internally within the comms team, but we'll be coming out and talking to each of the patient and carer experience forums about how we can get involved and get that, local voice or local effort, ambition, whatever language you want to use to support us in those localities. I don't want to speak ill of the contractor that's been supported us for the last number of years, but I don't think we've had that. But certainly, there's an ambition and a desire when we go live from April to start getting out and about. At the moment, I think the next 3 months is just a safe transition to bring the charity in-house, and then we can start to hit the ground running and really put a bit of energy back behind it.
Thank you, Pete. I hope that helps with your question, Doff. So someone will be coming into local groups at some point soon to sort of try and realise some of what you're suggesting there for Doff. Thank you for that. I can't see any other hands up. I think that's a legacy hand from Doff. So thank you, my NED colleagues. Now, I'm just conscious that Pete has got another meeting to go to that he has to get away from by 4:30. With the permission of the meeting, can we take items 15, 16 and 17, which Pete's leading on, together as a group so that he can meet his other work commitment meeting, if that's okay with everybody? I'll just bring him forward. Right, no opposition to that. Pete.
Lovely, thank you, Caroline. So if we take the performance report first, so this is performance as at the end of October. Folk on the call today see performance broadly consistent with what we've seen in previous months. And, I have to say, and we discussed this at board, in the main, given the environment we've been operating in, performance is generally positive and strong. I guess if I was to pull a few items out, I'd probably be looking at, whilst sickness and occupied bed days are flagging on the safer staffing dashboard, we do see and get the level of assurance we're looking for on a care hours per patient day, all being green, which provides us with the assurance we'd be looking for in that area. I think it's always pleasing to see improvement, and I think some of the improvement we've seen in talking therapies, particularly with performance on the 6-week target now being above 75% for 2 consecutive months. And whilst it's not in the public domain yet, that performance has continued. We have seen an improvement in out of area usage. Statman training continues to be strong, as does the level of trust vacancies and all the effort we put into our workforce metrics. There's a lot of detail in the report, Chair, that I won't, I'll confess I won't go into given the size of the agenda today, but I'll stop there. There's myself, there's Michelle, and there's Lynn on the call if there's any questions from governors.
Are there any questions or clarification from governors required on the performance report, please? Looking around. Will. And then Marilyn.
So I'm interested in the meaning of the IAT report, but I imagine we won't be able to dig into it now because it would be successful completion of treatment. Does that exclude people who have been removed from the intervention? So would it be, who would I approach at a later stage to unpick the meaning of that?
If you want to drop me a note, Will, and then between myself and Lynn, we'll get someone from our BI team to talk through the metrics behind it.
Thank you.
Caroline, you're on mute.
Yeah. Sorry about that. That'll be taken up, and Lynn was nodding there as well as a follow-up. Marilyn.
Just getting on a bandwagon that I've been on for about the past 20 years on enhancing prevention. I'll leave the wellbeing and recovery out because I think the prevention bit is the way that the NHS has to go in order to cope with the demands that we make on it. And I just wondered if that is being pushed up the ladder, if you like. We're focusing more on prevention where we can, and we'll carry on in the future. I can't see any other way forward for the NHS other than to promote self-care and so on, self-management, and all the other things that come into enhancing prevention.
Yeah. Thank you, Marilyn. I know that I was on a Humber North Yorkshire Trust Chairs meeting earlier this week, and I know across the ICS and the ICP, one of the areas which speaks to some of what you're saying, I think, Marilyn, is a focus much more on the early years and children's and start in life, because actually it's about the children, but it's also about the parent, whoever the family support is around that child. How do you sustain them and enable them to have that resilience sometimes to cope with things, as well as providing support that they might need. But I mean, the early intervention side of things seems to me a really important part of that. And in fact, it was interesting today on an interview with for a consultant, how he mentioned about looking at what happens to children if their needs aren't attended to within a mental health environment. The consequences of that down the road as they enter into adulthood are enormous as well. So I think that it's a really good point. I don't know if any other colleagues want to add to that. Lynn, anything you'd like to add there?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Caroline, and absolutely would agree with you, Marilyn. And the NHS has obviously had this focus, but turning it into reality is slightly different, particularly when we've got that increased demand at the complex end. But as you say, the only way we're going to address that is with that prevention agenda coming further forwards. But absolutely, I think that children's agenda, and we see it from both our mental health perspective and the 0 to 19s provision, there is absolutely that focus now, and not just how we look at it from a health perspective, but that social care and obviously education perspective too. So I think there is now a real opportunity for within that system integration to really have that focus on children now. But I think to turn that sort of turn that around, as you quite rightly say, Marilyn, I think for a few of us it's been our life's work to see that happen. We do as much as we can within our services as well, in order to think about that prevention agenda and the recovery agenda. Get both of those right, as you say, then that will really make a difference to people's lives. But if you look at the strategy of our ICS, it says that clearly in its intent, absolutely. But it's for all of us, isn't it, within this system to make that be realised and make it happen.
And we've got Emma's hand up.
Yeah, Lynn just said my sentence as I was going to come in. It's that whole system thing, isn't it? The NHS can't do this alone. We know that. So it's about making sure that we're all involved in that.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you for that question, Marilyn. I can't see any other hands up. So we'll move on to the finance report, Pete, please.
Lovely, thank you, Caroline. So this is the finance report. That does take us to the end of November. So as Council of Governors, you are actually seeing this ahead of the Trust Board, but we have seen it at Finance Committee and Executive Management Team. And just very quickly, since the last finance report to the Council of Governors, we did go through a H2, which is the second half of the year financial reset exercise with the Integrated Care Board, as did the rest of the NHS. And that is in response to the 200 million that was played out nationally that would have all seen in the press a few months ago. You know, as part of that reset process, some additional resource was allocated to the trust. And as you can see from the 3 months within the report, in September and October, we were reporting a deficit position, but with the allocation of the additional H2 resource, that enabled us to get back to a break-even position. And we said, as part of the H2 reset process, we expect to deliver a break-even position at the end of the year with the resource that's been played out. You know, you'll see through the period we've maintained a healthy cash position, and we continue to have strong performance on the Better Payment Practice Code. A couple of things I highlighted earlier when I presented the accounts, and I think they are generally a good indication of financial health, cash, and how quickly you pay in your suppliers. You know, there's detail in the report of the corporate and the divisional performance, but overall, as I sit here today, you know, we have a level of confidence we'll hit our financial target for the year. You know, so I will stop there, Caroline. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Pete. Any questions or queries from colleagues? Just looking around. No, thank you very much. That is noted. Annual operation planning cycle, Pete.
Yeah, so it's quite unusual at the moment, Caroline, because I'm sat here today talking about operational planning, and there's a void or an absence of planning guidance at the moment. So, you know, the intention on this paper was to summarise a little bit what the planning guidance was telling us ideally, and actually just bring to the Governor's attention the current planning cycle in a view to develop a trust operational plan for 2024-25. Whilst we're still waiting for the planning guidance, myself, Lynn, Michelle have all been on national calls, and whilst it's not published, what we're expecting is a continuation in the themes that we got in last year's planning guidance, which was a focus on urgent and emergency care, focus on elective recovery, focus on access to primary care, and a strong expectation that there'll be a break-even position for all organisations and all systems. And I think the latter is the most challenging point for all. So, you know, you'll see from within the paper, there's no actual requirement for the trust to produce an operating plan and submit it anymore, because we form part of the ICB plan. But the intention this year is to build on the success of the service and divisional service planning process to actually pull together a trust-wide operational plan, which I think that the big intention will be able to take that to the annual members meeting in a bit of a we said we did type approach. You know, and I think within the paper, without drawing it out, we kind of highlight how we'll keep governors informed throughout the planning process. So again, I don't know if Michelle or Lynn want to add anything up. I'm happy to stop and take questions.
Michelle, Lynn, do you want to come in, or are you happy with that?
No,
as you said,
I'm happy with that. I think that's fine. Yeah. As we've usually got a lot more detail. It will be tough next year. We know that. So we're working through that. The Integrated Care Board already under enormous pressure in relationship to finance. But no, nothing further to add, really. I think Pete summed it up very well.
Thanks, Pete. So that was really a heads up, Pete, wasn't it? And as and when, you know, obviously there is, you know, plans like this is significant, you know, governors need to be aware of. And so there'll be other points during the year. But, you know, just on this and any other papers, if any governors have got, if this is new to you, you've got any queries, just, you know, email us and let us know, and we'll try and get some answers to you. I know it's quite a lot to take on if you're a relatively new governor, or you're not used to seeing these sort of reports. So I can't see any questions. So thank you. So thanks, Pete. You can stand down. You can go. I think Stella's going to take on the annual declarations later on the agenda for instead of you having to be there as well. Thank you very much, Pete. Appreciate it.
I'll duck out now, and thanks. Good to see everybody, and thank you for letting me bring it forward, Caroline. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, we'll go back to item number 11, which is the membership Council of Governors subgroups feedback, and we'll start with Doff on the membership engagement activities. Doff.
Thank you very much. We have in fact had 2 meetings, but the most recent meeting was last week, so I will try and give a verbal report on that. We had a very interesting meeting on the 23rd of November, and it was a very full discussion, and Val and Catherine from the volunteering unit came, and we had a very useful exploration, which followed on from what had been discussed at the Council of Governors at the previous meeting. So Lynn had provided us with a briefing paper about how volunteering was being progressed and developed, and Catherine and Lynn were able to pick up on the suggestion that Marilyn made at the Council of Governors meeting, which was to go and have a look at what was being done in Bradford. And it was really, really interesting to hear about how the exploration with the Bradford model had gone, and what was concluded through that discussion was there was some useful things to learn from Bradford, but Bradford also found there were some very useful things to learn from what was being done in Humber. And I think everybody in the meeting felt very reassured that we were doing the best that we can to move that forward, keep it open, recruit as many volunteers as possible. And we did ask that the paperwork from the Engaging with Members meeting should be more widely circulated to all of the members of the Board of Governors to kind of get that. I mean, I think that historically our group feel that there's a need to kind of put a fresh face on volunteering in terms of get some more PR that kind of renews the idea, so that if there has been a sense out there with the public that it's very hard to become a volunteer for Humber, that we need to just really give some oomph to putting out the fact that we've looked at it afresh, we've looked at ways of ensuring we can make it as effective as possible. So I think that, so there was a lot that came out of that, and I think governors feel very reassured. Did you want to make a point, Marilyn, at this point?
Yeah, just to say that it was great to see that, you know, somebody had been over to Bradford and they'd had this really sort of sharing meeting, because I heard from Bradford that that's what happened. I think as far as the volunteering is concerned, I think PACE actually made a very good, well, it was a video, wasn't it, of the different ways of volunteering, and I don't think that's got out far enough, really. I think that could be used to go out into the community a lot more than it actually is, because a lot of hard work was put into doing that. Because you're right, there needs to be a lot more PR about the advantages of volunteering in the NHS. I don't think it's got out there as well as it should have myself, but anyway, just my opinion.
So I think the governors are trying to examine this in some detail, and we really are looking very hard at how we can encourage all of that engagement between what the trust is doing and how the community can really contribute to what the trust are doing, and to understand and give feedback on what they think is going on. So it was a very full meeting, and we followed that up with a meeting on the 11th or 12th of January, and we really want to look in a bit more detail at the work plan in terms of how we develop ideas that enable the governors to engage with the public and engage with other staff. So we're really focusing on engagement, and I'm very grateful that Tony has put himself forward to become the chair of the Engaging with Members group, because I think in itself, the more engagement we can do, the better PR it is for the trust. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Sorry, Doff. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, that's fine. I'm finished.
Emma.
Yeah, what we're hearing within the voluntary sector is that volunteers are very, very difficult to find at the moment, and there are a lot of smaller organisations that really rely on volunteers that are just not getting the uptake at all. Don't know why yet. In Hull particularly, we were looking to bring everybody together and try and have a central way that we could start to encourage people to volunteer, which we can start looking at. You know, that can include the NHS as well. This is about volunteering in your area, isn't it? But currently they're just very, very difficult to find and get commitment from.
Is there not a borough-wide thing in Hull? I know in Doncaster we have something where there's a sort of borough-wide umbrella for anyone who wants to volunteer, and then they can signpost.
Yeah, there are a couple in Hull. There's one in East Riding as well, but even that, so everybody can advertise on that, but it's getting the people into there that's the difficulty.
Thanks, Emma, for sharing that. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very small suggestion that we enjoy good relations with the police. My son is a police officer in South Yorkshire, and as part of their application process, they do expect to see volunteering as part of the application. So a contact with the police to ask that question, they could be directed towards us. The other thing is that HSBC used to have a volunteering programme because they did some cleaning up work at Magnus. So if anyone can interrogate the corporate social responsibility of companies, large companies in the whole area, actually our new associate director might be able to help in this. That they might be other Priyanka, that there might be other routes, but I just leave it there. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mike. Thank you. That's a really good point as well, both in the public and private sector. I think actually, am I right? I'm looking to maybe Michelle and Lynn here, but I'm sure I read on one of the globals or something. Didn't we have a member of staff recently who her volunteering in the community was nationally recognised by one of the awards organisations? I'm sure I've seen that somewhere. I think she was involved in Hull. I think that's right. So obviously a lot of our staff do that as well, and you know, great sort of role models and examples of what you can do. Thank you for that. Can I just add on the engaging members thing, just to say that on the note on the paper is about discussion around staff governors and staff. Michelle and we had a conversation before Christmas about this, and I know I had a recent conversation with Stella. We are you know, working obviously with the staff governors. We are looking to have an opportunity, probably maybe twice a year, for a sort of meet your staff governors online that can be advertised. And Stella, you're taking that away, aren't you, Stella, to see how we can firm that up and talk to the EMT about it? Stella's nodding. She nodded. Great. Okay. Thanks very much. Okay. Moving on then to the Appointments, Terms and Conditions Committee. Sue, do you want to just say something? But then we've got the next item as well about the terms of reference too. Sue. You're on mute, Sue.
Hello. Yes, we've had a number of meetings, as you've been aware, and I think you've been aware we've done quite a lot of work with the appointments, terms and conditions. And really, the culmination is in the revised terms of reference because of some of the work that's been happening with the appointment terms and conditions. There are 3 governors leaving the Appointment Terms and Conditions Committee as of now, this month. And it's the work that we do have to have quoracy, we do have to have representation from the governors. So to help to look at how that can be worked, we looked at the terms and conditions, and I think you will see attached the you'll see attached that the proposal is to change a little bit of the appointment terms and conditions terms of reference to reference that not only can public governors be members of the committee, but also that service patient and service user and carers governors can be members of the committee and take a role. And so that's what I'm asking the Council of Governors to look at. This is because we have to have no less than 4 and no more than 6 public governors. That's changed to have quoracy, to have as membership, and that's to help with quoracy because at times we have struggled to have enough governors there. So if we include the service user and carer governors, it does give us some more governors to be able to attend those meetings. The quoracy is for 2 public and or service users if that is accepted by the COG, and to be the trust chair or senior independent director. So that it is very important. And also that it changes reference that if we allow service and carer users governors to be part of the committee, that they can then also chair the ATC committee, which would be very helpful in the fact that at the last meeting we discussed the person who put themselves forward to chair is Patient Service User Governor Marilyn. And so we need to accept the first part first, to say we accept the change in the terms of reference, and then we can accept Marilyn as the new chair. So that's what I'd like to put forward. Also, yeah, so I'd just like to put that forward. And just as an add-on to that, I'd just like to thank all the governors who have supported me on the ATC, because at times it's been like pulling teeth, and I've needed that. And just to say, whoever does, hopefully Marilyn, will take over. It's going to be an exceptionally busy time because it's coming up to the appraisals of all the non-executive directors, and that will be very, very busy. And then on the top of that, I would just like to say, before I forget, because as you all know, I do forget little things, that I couldn't have got through all this without the help of Jenny, who does all the minutes and keeps me sorted for the appointments committee. And
Great.
Katie, because she keeps me sorted in general.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Sue, and all of your work. It's appreciated, and wish you the best. So on the report there, as you know, this came out of a discussion arising at the ATC, where we realised there was this anomaly that existed, which, it was literally, it was a bit of an eye-opener. So I'm asking Councillor Governors, are you happy to approve the report and the recommendations within it? Yes, thumbs are going up, virtual hands are going up. Fantastic. And it was subject to your approval that we could then move forward with Marilyn, who put herself forward to chair this important committee. So thank you very much, everybody, for that. Sue, thank you. And looking forward to working with you, Marilyn, in this role as well. We'll be seeing a lot of each other, as Sue and I have over the last few years as well. OK, thank you very much. We'll move on then to results of the membership cleanse. Stella.
Yes, thank you, Caroline. So the membership plan that is appended to the paper contained an action for us to contact the membership to say, do you still want to be a member, which is good practice anyway. So we did that, and it resulted in about just under 4,000 people saying, yeah, we want to remain a member, which is good compared to some other trusts that have carried out this exercise. But also at the same time, we said, if you want to remain a member, please would you give us your email address? And that resulted in over 3,500 giving us their email address, which is great for engagement purposes. So we've undertaken that cleanse, and we've completed that action. And then following that, the Engaging with Members group said we'd like to see how representative our membership is. So we produced a report and took that to them, and they considered it. And the group felt that generally it was quite representative, and they didn't feel that we needed to target any specific groups around membership as a result of that. And the paper contains the result of that membership representative exercise for you to look at. And then also attached there for you to know is the membership plan. And I wanted to bring it here again because that membership plan, while it gets discussed at the Engaging with Members group, it actually applies to all our governors from the different sort of constituency areas, and it has got actions in there for you to undertake. So I wanted to really point that out to you so you can familiarise yourself with it. And if you've any queries, please let me know, and I can take them back to the Engaging with Members group. So it's just there for noting is that paper, Chair, but that's just a summary of the key points in there.
Thank you, Stella. I think, look, it's quite nerve-wracking doing this sort of thing because you're never quite sure, what you're going to end up with, whether, everyone's going to disappear. It's really quite a frightening process, but I think it's actually absolutely the right thing that we did last year, and that that the governor supported that as part of our Engaging Members work. And actually, I think to get over 3,000 emails back from people is pretty incredible, actually, and gives us a good basis to sustain those members' interests and new opportunities to be in touch with them. So I think it's been a really healthy process and a positive process to go through. Any questions for anybody or comments to make on any of that? Michelle?
Yeah, thank you. I think it is a really good process to do, and it is good that we've got such a good uptake of people still wanting to be members, etc. I was just wondering, I wouldn't mind, Stella, you sending me a bit more of a breakdown about the makeup of the members. I mean, I think there's a bit about the diversity in there, but I just can't get around disability and possible lived experience and what have you. So I was just wondering if we could maybe share that with me afterwards. I think that'd be quite, and maybe all the governors would be interested as well, because I think it's good from a BAME point of view, but I think from that wider diversity inclusion piece, I'd like to see the detail on that.
Thank you, Michelle. Stella, sorry, want to come back?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't collect that data. We only collect the data through the database, that Monitor originally needed for us to report on when we used to report this information to them. So we don't have that, but we do have something that says, based on where they live, they might be this sort of like socio-economic class. We do have that, if that helps.
Well, maybe there's an opportunity now that we've got so many people on the emails, we can take it away, yourself and Michelle, and the end, take it away to think about, is there a sort of really simple survey we could do that's really accessible and user friendly for, on a voluntary basis, those members to share with us if they so wish, and somehow it could be connected into hearing their voice within the trust. Maybe that's something to take away if we weren't able to do it in the original cleanse. I think that might be a really productive way forward. Does that sound all right to you, Michelle?
Yeah, I think it's a really good suggestion, and I think Emma's put in about other diversity. It's that whole piece about inclusion. So we can do something, Stella. We can even use some of the data, some of the forms that we use within the organisation. So we've got the relevant database that we can put the figures into as well. So it shouldn't be too onerous. So I think it's something that we need to action.
And we could share the volunteering video by sending the link to that out on an email to the members. It's another opportunity, because they're really good, our videos, and we should maximise their reach, I think. Great. Any other questions on the membership cleanse? Sounds awful, membership cleanse, doesn't it? It's just I'm not sure if I'm happy with that terminology, but anyway. Right, okay. Moving on then. And let me get back on. We have got any other governors' questions? Governors' questions, anything that's not come up already, or you'd feel you'd like to ask, and or for it to take away to respond later. I haven't had any notification. John, your hand's up. John.
Yeah, just a quick question there is on the public governors membership plan, and part of what we need to do and achieve the membership, and on the final line there is ensuring people know how to contact governors and the benefits of memberships, i.e. a business card. Why would they want a business card? Why would they want a business?
Sorry, I'll take myself off mute again. Yeah, a business card is available for all governors. Katie is the person to speak to about that. Katie is listening in on the call. That should be followed up with you, John, when you became a new governor. So if it hasn't, apologies, but that's available. That's just for everybody, and that's for anybody who hasn't got one. Basically, on one side of the business card, and this was something that came out in the Engaging Members group, is just your name and where you're represented. The email to contact isn't to your personal emails. It's a generic email which can be picked up at the board support unit. And on the flip side of the business card is actually information if someone comes up to you and they want to raise something, where they can raise it within the trust, like complaints and things like that. It's not to put onto you to deal with that, but that business card is available. So we'll make sure, and as I say, if anybody else hasn't availed themselves of that bit of kit. Oh look, there we are, business cards being held up on screen. There you go. They do exist. We'll get one sorted. We'll get one sorted for you, John.
Just trying to say, I do recall now. Katie did give me a pack. I do have a pack. Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right. It's given an opportunity to advertise the business card. That's perfectly fine. That's great.
About that, yeah. I do have them.
Any other questions? Right. Okay. Moving on then, we dealt with the items from Pete and we go on to the item 18, which is the annual declarations, and Stella's going to lead on this. Stella, thank you.
Yeah, this paper is here and why it's important for governors is it details how we meet our provider licence. And in the Code of Governance, governors have a role to be assured that when the board makes decisions, that it doesn't take any decisions which breach the licence conditions. So with that being there, you can actually see the licence conditions and you can see all the different things we're doing at the trust to meet those licence conditions. So it's mainly here for noting. If you do have any comments about any of the things that we said we do, then they'd be gratefully received. That's that, Chair.
Thank you, Stella. Any questions or clarification needed on that report from Stella? Nope. Okay, thank you very much. That has been noted then. Thank you. Item 19, I haven't had any notice of any other business. Has anybody else got any other business to raise? No. Okay. Review of the meeting. Have we been Humber? So, I mean, if I just sort of break that down, I mean, do people feel that the presentations today by individuals have been accessible and understandable? I know some of the papers are quite challenging. I find them quite challenging, but I hope the cover sheets help to provide a sort of, a clear snapshot of the most important points. So any comments about the papers? Do people feel they've been able to, technical problems permitting, contribute and be heard and get good answers today? So anything in those areas or anything else about feeling that you've been able to take part, are people happy with that, or are there things we can take away and improve on you'd like to flag? Okay, I'll take that. Oh, Marilyn.
I'd just like to say that my experience of Humber is a very positive experience, and I hope, I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect, but I've been involved with the NHS for a long time, and I feel like we are heard. And I'm not saying there are times when we don't feel heard, but then I feel that I can say that. If I don't feel heard, I'm able to say that, and it's taken on board. So just thought I'd say that.
Thank you, Marilyn. I appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. I think organisations who end up saying we're all great and it's all done, that should be a real warning sign. There's always, it's a dynamic, isn't it? Always on these things, and so yeah, I think recognising that is a really important aspect of being healthy as an organisation as well. I know that's very much what everyone I've dealt with at Humber believes as well. So thank you for that. Great. I can't see any other hands up. So thank you, everybody. I don't know, it's goodbye but not farewell, I'm sure, to Dolph and Sue. Thank you so much. Welcome to Emma. Next time the governors meet at council, we'll have some new faces as well. Don't forget, there is this induction on the 1st of February. If anybody's interested in that as well, who is already a governor, get in touch with Katie if you want to take part. And I look forward to seeing you. Actually, if you can make the governor briefing on the 25th of January, it's between 9 and 10 on the 25th of January. It's a chance for all governors to just have an informal catch up with me, but also Brian, who's had to leave the meeting, got in touch with me over Christmas about wanting to hear more, a little bit more briefing about mental health legislation and when we detain people. And so we've got some staff members, Mike's been really helpful with sorting that out as well, coming for half of that hour to do a brief, introduction and time for questions on that. And anybody who can't make that, any slides that are provided, we'll send them to everybody as well. So yeah, without further ado, keep warm, don't slip on any snow if it's coming your way, and look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks all. Bye.
Bye.